Jim
Hello,
Acosta.
hello, Molly. Where are you?
Welcome, welcome. I'm in a undisclosed hostage location. I can say no more.
Just like
It's a
all of
tight,
us.
just a little jail cell.
That's how I
But
feel.
you know what I like about it is the lighting is so bad. Look at how bad that lighting is. I look
It
like I'm about
is.
10,000 years old.
You're in a
So,
glass case of emotion.
that's right, baby. So listen, here we are. It is another day in Donald Trump's America, and the war is over.
The war until
It's
tomorrow
done
morning. Until
until
tomorrow, because, buy low, sell high, all the market manipulation happened, and all the betting markets, they did their thing before Trump called Axios or whatever he did this morning.
yeah, he
And
really
then
he seems to have some kind of relationship with Axios. It's like
I kid.
gone.
I kid the people at Axios. I don't wanna make any
Right.
accusations without any
Certainly
solid
not.
evidence.
They are just breaking a lot of stories which end up being
I know, but it seems like we're living in a crazy, like it's like Mad Money Twilight Zone
that's right.
where there's like some mad there's a evil Jim Cramer on one of Donald Trump's shoulders, and then there's an angel Jim Cramer, and they tell him, "Manipulate it this way. Now we're at war. Now we're at
Well,
peace."
and
Yeah.
I mean, in Trump's defense, Donald Trump truly believes that the markets are the only indicator of the economy. So
Yes.
he could be watching the markets freaking out and then being like, "But let me see if I try to, if I say the war is over." And he's had a lot of success working journalists. I mean, you and I
Yeah,
can,
I
I
know.
mean, every time he calls someone, they're like, "I talked to the president and the president says," and that historically, you could do
Yeah.
that in reporting, but the problem is the president says a lot of stuff, our president, a lot.
He does. Like, he says, that, Jerome Powell should be, prosecuted for cost overruns at the Federal Reserve, while there are cost overruns at the proposed White House ballroom that was initially gonna be funded by private donors, which will now be funded by the taxpayers to the tune of $1 billion. But anyway,
That, by the
not
way,
that that matters.
that's gonna be in reconciliation, which means if you're a Senate Republican, you're gonna have to vote yay or nay on $1 billion $1 billion tax dollars to go
Yeah.
to Donald Trump's ballroom. Huh?
Yeah. No, I know, and I to me, I've been making this point, I don't know if anybody else wants to make this point with me, but
Mhm.
all of this is a sign of he's just not there anymore, he's gone, it's one flew over the cuckoo's nest, and we just need to as adults in the American family writ large, it's time we have this conversation and have this intervention with one another, and we just admit that he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and he's just building one thing after another in his honor because I don't know, that's what some people do at the end.
When
What this is just what they do. There's the Palm Beach International Airport that's gonna be renamed.
Right,
There's the blue
right.
reflecting pool. I mean, it's all bananas, you know?
So I wonder if we could talk for a minute about Trump has put his Republicans in a bad spot. And I, for
Yes.
one, love it. I love it so
Yes.
much. I couldn't love it
Yes.
more. I do happen to be in a jail cell, but if I were not in a small jail cell, I
I was
would
gonna say,
be. You're like, you
is
okay?
should I be
Uh,
talking to you right now? Am I
that's
now
right.
do I get
But
to go in the jail cell next? Yeah.
But there was this incredible Indiana,
Yes.
primary, and in it, Donald Trump exacted his revenge on the people who would not go full MAGA, who would not redistrict for him, and he
Yeah.
knocked out, like, 5 of 7, okay? There's one who may go, and there's another one who, won. So he knocked out 5 of 7 Indiana state reps. So here's the deal. My
Yeah.
guess is that Republicans will take from this that they must hitch their wagon to MAGA, full stop.
Yeah, it's sort of we're at the Branch Davidian phase of MAGA, and yeah, I
That's a
think
good
that
line.
they have to stay in the cult to survive, even though at the end everything's gonna burn to the ground and they'll be inside. Not to get too dark and descriptive, but I don't think they have any other choice, a lot of these guys, and I mean, Indiana is kind of like if a state were the Branch Davidians or the Branch Davidians were a state, it would be Indiana. No offense to there are a lot of nice folks in
Right.
Indiana, but
Well,
it's a very
it's
conservative state.
right. We're looking at the red part of the red state, right? Because these are
Yes,
primary voters. And what's important about
correct.
this is so goes the Republican primary voters, or not so goes the nation.
That's right.
If
That's exactly right, and they've made this deal with the devil. They've hitched their wagons to him, to the crazy train, and it's gonna go off the tracks and into the canyon, and there's gonna be a giant Bugs Bunny explosion at the end of it, but I to me, they have no other choice as political animals. Now, I will say to the state lawmakers who risked their political skin and, stood against the redistricting thing that Trump wanted to do there, my hat's off to you. Thank you for your service to your country. But they had to have known that this was gonna happen, and this is gonna keep playing out over and over again wherever these ruby red districts and states are, wherever they may be.
one of the things that I think is really interesting about this moment is, well, if you look at this in the light of like Brad Raffensperger and the people in Georgia who were able to keep their seats despite
Yeah,
the fact that they did not let Donald Trump cheat in the 2020 election, I do think it's interesting. Like, you do see just how hard it is to, and remember, Raffensperger got a ton, that crew in Georgia and Brian
yeah,
Kemp, they got a ton of outside money. So there are
yeah.
people in the Republican Party who are trying to shore up the not crazies. Now, maybe they're
Yes.
doing that to protect themselves, and maybe they're not, who knows? But they clearly did not
Georgia's
come in for Indiana.
Yeah, Georgia is interesting. Georgia is an interesting Republican, stronghold in that they have 2 Democratic United States senators.
Yeah.
And Atlanta continues to boom as the southern metropolis, and I think it's really just sort of changed the political landscape in Georgia, and that they reward establishment type Republicans, and they're more and more not in the mood to elect, MAGA people like Donald Trump, and I think that this is a trend that you're gonna see maybe continue. I think building across other parts of the South, I mean, let's wait and see what happens to Lindsey Graham in South Carolina. There are a lot of folks who think that he could get knocked off in the upcoming. I mean, he's freaking out on Fox every night, begging for money as if he thinks that he might get knocked out in the upcoming, midterm election. So
Which
there's something happening, I think, um,
And I
in
think
some of these
th
places.
and really the big problem for Republicans, right, is that they have to go full MAGA in an environment that is very anti-MAGA. So
They
when you
have
get
to.
to a general, you are hitching your wagon to a president who is underwater on everything.
Yeah, underwater and maybe under-medicated, that's the other thing too, or over-medicated, we're not sure which one it is,
Yeah,
but I mean, to me, like, the whole Iran war back and forth where they, announced this operation will guide your tankers through the Strait of Hormuz, whatever the hell they called it,
right.
Gas Freedom or what whatever it was,
I mean,
Fill Her
who
Up
kn
Mac, Operation Fill
that
Her Up Mac,
that was
they
yesterday when we heard that the ceasefire was not holding the day before we
yeah,
heard the ceasefire was not holding, and so yesterday, Hegseth did a whole
he
press
did a whole
conference
thing.
about how the ceasefire there was a little bit of
Yeah.
firing,
A
but
skirmish is not a ceasefire, but breaking the
right.
ceasefire. He
Yeah,
also said Trump is not capitulating, and then he capitulated. Like,
yeah,
within, like, 12 hours, I think he
I think
capitulated.
if you say
Marco
you're not
Rubio went out in the briefing
capitulating
room and defended it too, and then got the rug completely pulled out from under him, and he's the national security advisor and the secretary of state and a DJ apparently on the
and he's
weekends.
also the Pope whisperer.
He's the Pope whisperer too.
Because he's on his way to the Vatican to meet
Yes.
with the Pope because JD Vance, the guy who should historically have a relationship with the Pope as a Catholic convert, has already alienated the Pope so much
Yeah.
so that he's sort of at war with the Pope.
Yes, I mean, it's that Dominus Obitus, who goes under the bus, one of those
Right.
things.
Mm.
And it may be Marco, it may be JD, it may be both of them, we don't know. Yeah, I mean, they're sort it's like Lucy in the Chocolate Factory right now. They don't
It's
know what
not
to do with
Lucy in the
themselves.
Chocolate Factory. It's gotta be Lucy in the Football or Charlie in the Chocolate Factory.
Well, remember
There's no
Lucille Ball, I
Lucy.
Love Lucy, when she was,
Oh,
like, eating all the
okay, alright,
chocolate,
that's a good
and
one.
they're coming
Alright,
off the
that's good.
conveyor belt,
Yep.
and she can't load them fast enough, so anyway, I'm slightly
No,
older, and
no,
I
that was
had a
good.
Cuban
Poor
dad, and we watched
Lucy.
I Love Lucy a lot growing up,
I love
but that
Lucy
scene is
too.
iconic, and I think that is where they are right now, and that we
Yeah.
gotta invite Joe Rogan to the White House. We gotta send
Right.
Marco Rubio to the Vatican. We gotta, pressure Indiana to toss out these Republicans. I mean, I call this Operation Midterms Freakout because,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
will Trump will, pump his chest out and say, "We're back at war," over the weekend, and then 3 days later, it's a one-page peace plan that he's talking about with the Iranians because he can't take it anymore. They must be showing him poll numbers. They must be looking at poll numbers internally over there right now with whatever that guy's name is that they always bring in the pollster, Tony Fabrizio, who freaks them
Yeah.
out, and
Yeah.
and I assume that this is what's happening, and they're having a
But
full-blown mental breakdown over what they see is coming, and so he's gotta wrap this shit up. The other thing is, I mean, Marco, he might wanna go ask the Pope if it's okay to invade Cuba because Marco Rubio is posing in front of maps of Cuba with CENTCOM earlier this week, but I'm sorry, if you wanna topple the Castro, the communist regime in Cuba, they're gonna have to bomb the shit out of Havana. And I don't see how that's gonna work well with the Catholics either, so they're in a
but
jam.
but also, Donald Trump has a big problem, which is gas is really expensive. So
Yes,
American people hate that. He made it
yes,
expensive by
yeah,
going into Iran and messing with the straits. Now,
yeah,
there's no, as you and I both know from the Biden administration, once
yeah.
prices go up, very hard to get them down.
Yes, no, the oil companies really like that extra money that's coming in, and,
Right.
why would they wanna give that up? And so I assume there'll be some, a modest easing of gas prices. I'm no economist, but I don't think they're gonna be back to where they were a year ago
But
anytime
how?
soon.
But
Yeah,
even the Iranians are not, they do not want to play ball with us. So
that's right.
the idea that they could charge $2 million a ship through
Right.
the straits, I mean, like, why wouldn't they do that? They have no love for us. I mean, this is like
Exactly. And
he's like,
also they have to rebuild their military. They kinda need some money right now. They got some bills. They gotta
yeah,
rebuild a navy, they gotta rebuild this, I
they're
assume
nukes.
they're gonna wanna get some nukes now. They're gonna wanna rebuild their nuclear program and get those
Yeah.
centrifuges going again,
Not
and that
good.
costs money.
Not good. Not
Guess who's
good.
gonna be paying for it? The American taxpayer.
Us.
You're
If
gonna pay for a
only
ballroom, and you're gonna pay to rebuild Iran's nuclear program.
and the
Congratulations, America. Well done.
And the joke is that if only we had had an Iranian nuclear deal.
Yes. Well,
Oh,
that's the thing that's
wait.
part of this is apparently they're gonna go back to negotiating with the Iranians that, they should
Yeah,
not have a
because
nuclear program.
it
Like the
turned
thing we
out
had in 2016.
yes, it turned out Obama figured this out, and now Donald Trump, just like remember when he got rid of NAFTA and then put in, like, Trumpta or
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
it was? Like,
The
that's what this is
USMCA,
like.
remember it was like the Y
Yeah.
it that's why he likes the song YMCA so much because it's like the USMCA, but
It's
and I
like
remember
NAFTA,
covering
but
that.
stupider. Yeah.
I know, I remember I covered that and I was like, "Isn't this NAFTA? This is NAFTA, right? It's kinda like NAFTA, but
Don't call it
it's
NAFTA.
Trump's NAFTA."
Don't call it NAFTA.
I know, and maybe he'll get Barack Obama or John Kerry to negotiate with the Iranians, I don't know, but it is rather I don't know. I don't really use the word
Disturbing.
ironic anymore. Yes, it's
Disturbing.
you're not supposed
And,
to say dystopian, that's apparently a writing crutch, but
yeah,
I keep
it's
coming back to that
dystopian.
word. It's
Yes.
dystopian.
Jim Acosta, my favorite person to be in the
Aw,
dystopia was, "Will you please come back?"
yes, as long as you're not in a jail cell, I will come back.
Yeah, I just have to get freed.